The video game industry has a real problem with expectations. The industry, I made a tweet yesterday actually, and I've really been thinking about this a lot. And I think the video games industry is broken, fundamentally broken at a core level. Let's get into it. How exactly is the industry broken, you ask? Well, just have to look at the state of AAA games in 2022. For the last couple of years, we've been seeing major disasters happen in the gaming industry. Games like Cyberpunk 2077, a hugely anticipated game with a, 5, 6, 7 year development cycle. We heard about this game years ago before it ever came to fruition, and after waiting 5, 6, 7 years, it finally launched, completely broken, an utter mess, to the point where it was so bad that Sony had to remove it from their digital store. Physical copies were selling for like $10 all over the place at Best Buy right after launch because nobody wanted this game. And sure, it ended up selling, I think, 10 or 15 million copies or 20 million copies or something, which sounds good, but when most of those copies were sold at 10 or 20 or $25, that is a failure, to just an overwhelming failure, to the fact that CD Projekt Red, the developer of Cyberpunk, actually lost like 75% of their stock value. They went from like a $20 billion company to a $5 billion company over the course of just a year because of this mess. And consumers are losing trust in these mega developers. Nobody wants to buy a game at launch anymore. You look at something like Halo Infinite, which came out last year, and it launched completely stripped down, missing all kinds of basic functionality that, Microsoft should know better. Just absolutely, these games are coming out in a complete mess. Battlefield 2042, complete mess, absolute jank, to the point where, it's laughable. Like, there's nobody playing these games because they're just absolutely garbage. They could have used another 2 years in the oven to become the type of game that they actually should have been, that they were advertised to be, what fans wanted. When you look at something like Halo, of course you want all of these different functions. You want multiplayer with all kinds of different modes. You want single player. You want co-op, couch co-op at home. You want all of these things that you would expect in a Halo game. And basically none of that stuff was there at launch. The game was so stripped down. And see, this is a problem here. Game developers, particularly the AAA developers, there seems to be a mentality in place that if you throw money and you throw manpower at a game, it will be successful. But more often than not, what's happening is people are starting to turn more and more and more to indie games to fill the void. Because, I don't know, man, what happened to 15 or 20 years ago when there was a constant barrage of AA titles, as we call them, the middle level titles that might be 10 or 15 hours. Maybe they're not mind-blowing experiences, but brings to mind something for me, THQ Nordic. I absolutely love those guys. I always have, but what they're doing now on the Switch, bringing back remasters of some of these fantastic, what I would call AA games. Games like Kingdoms of Amalur: Re-Reckoning, the remake, SpongeBob Rehydrated, Destroy All Humans. Like, a lot of these games are just great little experiences that you can just have a lot of fun with. They're coming out at $30 or $40, and I don't know what to say about this, but it's like you have this weird dichotomy between, on one hand, you have this indie stuff and a couple of studios looking at something like Nintendo with Monolith Soft. They can put out a Xenoblade game and it sells 2 or 3 million copies, and they consider that a success. You look at Platinum Games, they put out something like Bayonetta. Bayonetta 3 might sell 2 or 3 or 4 or maybe 5 million copies if they're lucky. Earlier Bayonetta games didn't sell more than 1 to 2 million copies. It's kind of a niche title, but that's a high quality franchise that there is a lot of fun to be had in those games. They look great, they play great, they have cool stories. There's obviously dedication and heart in the development process of those games, and they give us all kinds of fun and pleasure and great memories, and they're happy with selling 2 or 3 million copies of those games. They consider that a success because their expectations were lower in the first place. They have smaller development teams, I guess. They invest less money in these games. And can you honestly say that Bayonetta 3 is going to be worth less money objectively than something like a Battlefield game or a Last of Us game, or any of these other huge big budget titles that these major... I don't know why I can't talk today, but carrying on, that these major studios are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on, and 5-6 year development windows, to come out with a broken mess like a Battlefield game. You look at something like the Call of Duty franchise, and it's actually kind of amazing that, between the 3 different studios, they've actually managed to have a 3-year development window on most of these Call of Duty games. Now, I think everybody would agree that Call of Duty has definitely been going downhill since the Black Ops and Modern Warfare era at the end of the 360 and early Xbox and PS4 era. Most people would agree that those games have gone downhill. There's been some high points here and there, but what we get out there for AAA games is either these rushed generic games that are the same thing over and over again, like Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed. And nothing against those games. Assassin's Creed games have been pretty fantastic. But they're getting pretty generic, and it's like when you look forward into the landscape of gaming and what you're going to see in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, what do we have to look forward to these days? More and more and more, people are getting excited about these indie titles. Things like Kena Bridge of Spirits, which was an absolutely fantastic game last year, and this year, Stray. Everybody's going crazy about Stray right now. Sure, it's a short experience. You can beat it in a couple of hours, 2, 3, 4 hours, even less. I've seen some people speed running the game in just a few minutes. Does that mean it's not worth anything? It's got people excited. People are happy and excited to play it. It's on multiple platforms like the PS Premium, so you don't even have to pay for it if you have a subscription. And these are the experiences that honestly are grabbing people's attention. You look at some of these big titles that you have to spend 100 hours in an Assassin's Creed game or something, and it's the same experience as it was last time. You look at Far Cry 6, and it's like, yeah, it's a Far Cry game. It's about all you can say about it. It's Far Cry. I think these developers, it's not the developers' fault, it's the publishers. They need to start adjusting priorities. We look at something like Sony shutting down Japan studios last year, and that was such a crying shame because some of the greatest, most creative, innovative stuff like Gravity Rush, it's gone now. It's not coming out of that studio anymore because that studio is gone. And honestly, that's where a lot of the heart and the personality on the Sony platforms came from over the last 20 years. And they've turned their back on it in favor of these 90 Metacritic score, huge cinematic experiences, which, yeah, God of War is great. Spider-Man is great. Last of Us is great. But that's not all. We can't just get by on 1 or 2 AAA games a year. We need those AA experiences. We need publishers to have smaller budget games that fill the void, and that seems to be pretty much gone. Now all we have is this disparity between the indie scene, which is thriving and booming, and the AAA scene, which seems to be struggling because they're spending ridiculous amounts of money on these games, and some of them do well and some of them don't. But if you look at Halo, that is a disaster. That is the flagship series for the Xbox platforms. If you've played the game for 5 or 10 hours, you've pretty much played the game. I mean, it is getting better after a year. There is more season passes and all this kind of stuff, but it's still not to the level of, honestly, just go back and get the Master Chief Collection. You're going to have a lot more fun playing the older games, upscaled and things like that, than you are with Halo Infinite. All these publishers trying to go for these live service games, these never-ending things, sometimes that works. You take a look at something like Final Fantasy XIV, and that is a huge success. But for every Final Fantasy XIV, there are hundreds of these live service games that just flop. We just heard news recently from EA that Skate, what we thought was going to be Skate 4, is now just going to be called Skate, and it's going to be a live service game with all kinds of microtransactions, swag bags that are not loot boxes. Really? How many of us really want to get into an ecosystem with a game and spend that kind of time? Most of us gamers, especially I would say older gamers, mature gamers, want to have a one-and-done experience where they can play a story, whether it's 5 or 10 hours or 20 or 30 or 40 hours, play the story, play the campaign, be done, and move on. We don't want all this situation where we have these free-to-play games. Free-to-play is great. Fortnite, that's great. That's a massive success. Some of these other, ones that are out there, they're successful. Overwatch, things like that. But that's for a certain type of gamer, and most of us, I would say, want these one-and-done single-player experiences that we can just put on the shelf behind us and, enjoy owning. But, going back to something like I just bought Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning again, and that's, a game from the 360 era that's basically, if Skyrim and World of Warcraft had a baby. It's a fantastic game. I played it before, and it was worth me picking up for the $26 so that I could go back and enjoy that compact experience all over again. And that's where I'm really putting my money. I mentioned THQ Nordic a lot because they're bringing stuff to the Switch particularly that I absolutely love. And then again, looking at something like Steam, there are so many great experiences to be had on Steam from the past. It's like, for me and for a lot of other gamers these days, we're not spending money or our precious gaming time on all of these huge AAA experiences. Sure, we may buy a few of them. A lot of people, of course, are gonna buy God of War when it comes out and, absolutely love it. But that's a once every 4 or 5 years experience. And in the meantime, I'm not picking up every AAA game that comes out. I'm just not. We see these Sony events and these Xbox events, and, so many things are announced. I look at something like Starfield and I think, this game's probably going to be a mess when it launches too. And I'm probably going to wait a couple of years and pick it up in a bargain bin because it's just not going to be worth a $70 experience to me when it comes out. I'm actually more interested in playing No Man's Sky now that that game has been so fleshed out. So many people are saying so many good things about it, and it is coming to the Switch. Now, arguably, it's probably not going to look great on the Switch, but I'm curious whether they're going to have cloud saves cross-platform, because if I could pick up No Man's Sky on Steam, I'm not sure if it's available on Steam, I think it is, but if I could pick that up on Steam and cross-save between Steam and my Switch, or I guess I could just use the Steam Deck, but that's an experience I'm a whole lot more interested in diving into than Starfield at this time, because I just know that game is going to launch a janky, broken mess. It just doesn't look like it's anywhere near ready to go. And of course they did delay it because they know that too. But anyways, I've been rambling here, guys. What do you think is the future for you? not for the gaming industry, but how are you purchasing games going forward? Are you a little bit more nervous about buying these AAA games at launch now? Or are you still jumping in feet first, for every one of these games, getting caught up in the hype? For me, I would rather buy an older game that I know is fixed and that I can pick up for $20 on sale on Steam or on the Switch than really waste my time with a lot of these games. And that's a problem, because I think we need to reintroduce the AA market, which doesn't exist. What happened to all those licensed titles? What happened to all these movie-based titles? Sure, a lot of them were garbage, but you look at some of those Lord of the Rings titles, for example, on the PS3 and PS4, Shadow of Mordor and stuff like that. Like, there was some value to be had there with a lot of that AA stuff, and it's just not coming out anymore. Every one of these publishers wants to put $100 or $200 million into some huge live service game that, at the end of the day, 1 in 10 of them are going to succeed, if that. So anyways, guys, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Am I completely crazy here? Have I rambled for 17 minutes for absolutely nothing? Let me know. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Stay classy.
So here I am in the cockpit of Mario Kart. Let's check this out.
Mario! Taking a photo. Mario is looking for no